This book is called A House for Hermit Crab by Eric Carle. Hermit crabs are really cool little animals. They're a crab that live in the shell, and as they grow, they'll leave their shell and go find a bigger shell. So this kind of talks about the life of a hermit crab. "Time to move," said Hermit Crab one day in January. "I've grown too big for this little shell." He had felt safe and snug in his shell, but now it was too snug. Hermit Crab stepped out of the shell and onto the floor of the ocean. But it was frightening out in the open sea without a shell to hide in. "What if a big fish comes along and attacks me?" he thought. "I must find a new house soon." Early in February, Hermit Crab found just the house he was looking for. It was a big shell and strong. He moved right in, wiggling and waggling about inside to see how it felt. It felt just right, but it looked so plain, thought Hermit Crab. In March, Hermit Crab met some sea anemones. They swayed gently back and forth in the water. "How beautiful you are," said Hermit Crab. "Would one of you be willing to come and live on my house? It is so plain it needs you." "I'll come," whispered a small sea anemone. Gently, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and put it on his shell. In April, Hermit Crab passed a flock of starfish moving slowly along the seafloor. "How handsome you are," said Hermit Crab. "Would one of you be willing to decorate my house?" "I would," signaled the little sea star. Carefully, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and put it on his house. In May, Hermit Crab discovered some coral. They were hard and they didn't move. "How pretty you are," said Hermit Crab. "Would one of you be willing to help make my house more beautiful?" "I would," creaked a crusty coral. Gingerly, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and placed it on his shell. In June, Hermit Crab came to a group of snails crawling over a rock. They grazed as they went, picking up algae and bits of debris and leaving a neat path behind them. "How tidy and hard-working you are," said Hermit Crab. "Would one of you be willing to come and help me clean my house?" "I would," offered one of the snails. Happily, Hermit Crab picked it up with its claw and placed it on its shell. In July, Hermit Crab came upon several sea urchins. They had sharp, prickly needles. "How fierce you look," said Hermit Crab. "Would one of you be willing to protect my house?" "I would," answered a spiky sea urchin. Gratefully, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and placed it near his shell. In August, Hermit Crab and his friends wandered into a forest of seaweed. "It's so dark here," thought Hermit Crab. "How dim it is," murmured the sea anemone. "How gloomy it is," whispered the starfish. "How murky it is," complained the coral. "I can't see," said the snail. "It's like nighttime," cried the sea urchin. In September, Hermit Crab spotted a school of lanternfish darting through the dark water. "How bright you are," said Hermit Crab. "Would one of you be willing to light up our house?" "I would," replied one of the lanternfish, and it swam over near the shell. In October, Hermit Crab approached a pile of smooth pebbles. "How sturdy you are," said the Hermit Crab. "Would you mind if I rearranged you?" "Not at all," answered the pebbles. Hermit Crab picked them up one by one with his claw and built a wall around his house. "Now my house is perfect," cheered Hermit Crab. But in November, Hermit Crab felt that his shell seemed a little bit too small. Little by little over the year, Hermit Crab had grown. Soon he would have to find another, bigger home. But he had come to love his friends, the sea anemone, the starfish, the coral, the sea urchin, the snail, the lanternfish, and even the smooth pebbles. "They have been so good to me," thought Hermit Crab. "They are like family. How can I ever leave them?" In December, a smaller hermit crab passed by. I have outgrown my shell, she said. Would you know of a place for me? I have outgrown my house too, answered Hermit Crab. I must move on. You are welcome to live here, but you must promise to be good to my friends. I promise, said the little crab. The following January, Hermit Crab stepped out and the little crab moved in. Couldn't stay in that little shell forever, said Hermit Crab as he waved goodbye. The ocean floor looked wider than he had remembered, but Hermit Crab wasn't afraid. Soon he spied the perfect house, a big empty shell. It looked, well, a little plain. But sponges, he thought, barnacles, clownfish, sand dollars, electric eels. Oh, there are so many possibilities. I can't wait to get started. The end. And so in the back of the book it talks about sea anemones, and they look like flowers, but they are soft animals without bony skeletons. They come in many shapes and colors with their many arms, and they catch their prey. Some specialize in attaching themselves to the shell of the hermit crab. Then they protect and camouflage the hermit crab, and in turn may share the hermit crab's meals. This arrangement is called symbiosis, meaning that both animals benefit from each other. And then one of the other animals he talked about was the starfish. And it says there are many kinds of starfish. Most have 5 arms growing from a central disc. The mouth of a starfish is on the underside of this disc, and it has a single simple eye on the end of each arm. With its powerful arms, it can open up an oyster or hold onto a rock during a storm when the waves lash about. And sometimes that's why you'll see starfish like attached onto rocks or things. Corals are somewhat similar to tiny sea anemones that build hard skeletons around themselves. Then hundreds and hundreds of them stick together, forming whole colonies. Some look like branches and others look round or disc-like. Millions upon millions fuse themselves together to build miles of long coral reefs. And then snails, there are approximately 80,000 species of snails and slugs. And you'll see snails sometimes outside at your house with their little shell on, and then slugs look like snails but without the shell. Some live on land, others live in sea or in lakes. Some carry a shell on their backs and some have none. The shells come in many colors and shapes. Sea urchins, some are fat and round and others are thin and spindly. Many have long spines and some are poisonous, with which they move around and dig into mud or rocks or other places. Their mouths with 5 pointed teeth are on the underside. And then a lanternfish, they look like fireflies. So they're fish, but they light up, have that light in them. They have luminous or light-producing spots on their bodies that light up their dark surroundings. Some lanternfish have lantern-like organs that dangle in front of their mouths, attracting other fish when they become their prey. So I know some of these things you probably have heard about from different movies you've watched, or even like Finding Nemo and things like that. So it's really fun to learn about the animals in the ocean. I hope you enjoyed this book.